make some sense of it all. But I can see it makes no sense at all. Is it cool to go to sleep on the floor? 'Cause I don't think that I can take anymore. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am, stuck in the middle with you.
Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today is Friday, June 20th, 2025, and Iran is apparently ready to make a deal. They've signaled that they want to have a talk with the president, and we'll see how that all works out. I have no idea. That's later on in the show. Simpsons and predictive programming. Yes, I mention a lot. I think I showed people in the Canada Poly chat how Phineas and Ferb is predictive programming. There's a whole bunch of children's television shows that use storytelling to push predictive programming. And now that those kids have grown up, because the predictive programming stuff was happening in the late 90s and early 2000s, now that those kids have grown up, these things are familiar to them. They've seen this before, right? The chipping, all of the crazy stuff that's going on, very familiar because they've seen those tropes in television shows. Simpsons, one of the most recent, brought to my attention, although I think a lot of the clips that he shows in it are well known. The UK today is passing the assisted dying laws, and based on the early votes, because they were doing the finalizing of the bill, and people were proposing amendments, and they were voting on the amendments. Based on the voting on the amendments, it looks like this bill is going to pass easily, and the United Kingdom will be having a pathway. They just passed abortion till birth, so you can abort your baby in the United Kingdom up until the day it's born, and now MAID, essentially. So they've got a pathway where the government can kill citizens and wrap it easily in this cloth of, don't worry, it's healthcare, right? No problems. Women's healthcare. Yep. Belgium will jail you if for a meme that you didn't share, but you participated in the group chat. Ruh-roh, Canada Poly chat people. It's one of those things where I look at these things and I think, holy cow, like there's no way this should go through. So I've got the details on that. Censorship. It's censorship up and down, left and right, you name it. It's coming at us fast. And Elect Respect Initiative is more censorship as well. They want to elect people who speak about things in ways that they like and not in ways that they don't like. And so if you do speak about things in ways they don't like, you're being disrespectful, and they're gonna stop you from doing that mean stuff. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're going to start with money and trade deals and the United States and Carney. And while it's no surprise, but looks like the trade war is back on. Elbows are back up or something like that. I'm not sure. Mario says Carney's implementing new measures against the United States to counter the tariffs while continuing to negotiate in good faith. Trump will definitely love that winning strategy. He says, oh yeah, we're going to definitely negotiate in good faith here. Sure.
Monday morning, I, with colleagues, met with President Trump to discuss international priorities as part of the G7, but also to further negotiate a new economic and security partnership between Canada and the United States. And as we've said repeatedly, we'll take all the time we need to get the best deal for Canada, but no longer. And seeing progress that's been made, President Trump and I agreed to pursue negotiations towards a deal within the coming 30 days. We'll continue these negotiations, of course, in good faith. In parallel, we must reinforce our strength at home and safeguard Canadian workers and businesses from the unjust U.S. tariffs that exist at present. And that's why we're announcing that Canada will be introducing a series of countermeasures to protect Canadian steel and aluminum workers and producers. And Monday,
Jessica sent in a body language and language video kind of deconstructing Carney, and I think it's in this list somewhere, but it's very interesting the language he chooses to use, and the video, it's 15, 20 minutes, I think, maybe longer, and it goes through it, and I think it does a good job breaking down how purposeful the language that he uses is in order to evoke certain emotions in Canadians and cover for what he's really trying to do. So it's an interesting video, and I'll highlight it when we get to it because I'm sure I've got it in today's list. I just don't see it. So anyway, Mark Carney is talking about new trade wars with the United States. Not great. Here's Champagne talking about this too. And he's asked, why are you taking out $95 million what's that money for? And he says, well, we're fighting the United States against this trade thing. We want no tariffs. So interesting, don't you think? I think it's very interesting. Here we go.
Why did you set up a $95 billion borrowing authority for geopolitical risk if we're going to get a deal with the U.S.?
Well, listen, we've always been clear since day one that we want to have no tariffs and that we're fighting for Canadian workers, the industry, and at the same time building our country. So we would continue, and we're continuing. I mean, you've seen it. We just had the G7. Prime Minister was there with the President. The Minister LeBlanc has been very active. We're very, very engaged to defend Canadian interests.
But $95 billion is a lot of money to borrow, right?
Well, listen, we have a number of tools in the toolbox. What Canadians expected us when we started that was to fight for them, but at the same time be prudent when it comes to looking at what we might be able to do to support industry. You've seen that we're now affected by unfair steel and aluminum tariffs. So we've been there to fight. We've been there to support the industry, the workers, and at the same time favor also domestic consumption of what we produce in Canada.
So he's talking about the steel tariffs, et cetera, and $95 million is a lot of money. Here's somebody else to tell you that Canada can't win in a trade war against the United States. This guy, it probably flashes.
Right. I mean, Mark Carney can talk as tough as he wants, but the fact of the matter is, almost 80% of our trade is south of the border. We have to try to live through the Donald Trump years, and we can't just overnight diversify our trade to India or China or anywhere else in the world, or Europe for that matter. It's just the economies are too integrated.
When the Prime Minister says we can give ourselves far more than...
The economies are too integrated. You can't just snap your fingers and diversify all of your trade to the rest of the world. It doesn't work like that. Way too integrated, right? You have all your customers in the United States. They're geographically close or closer than Europe would be. And Europe has all its customers. Your regulations are more closely matched to the United States than to Europe. It doesn't make logistical sense to change all of your customers from the United States to Europe to harm the United States. And the United States wouldn't really be harmed by that. They'll get their precious metals from wherever they need to get their precious metals from. They have first right of refusal for ours. All sorts of stuff. They have a whole deep well that they can go to get anything they need. They don't need to come to us. It benefits us when they buy from us. So what? It's insane. It doesn't make any sense. Holly Doan says Prime Minister's budget plan is ill-defined and may prove irrelevant, says Budget Office, the PMO. Mark Carney's proposes by 2029 to balance the operating budget are not an actual budget. The government has not defined how the new operating budget targets will be measured. PBO says. So the Parliamentary Budget Office, I think I said PMO, but I meant PBO. The Parliamentary Budget Office is talking about this. They're saying, listen, this isn't great. And having no budget impacts things. It impacts people, and it's not. I don't think it's good. It's not. I don't appreciate it. I think that it invalidates the government, in my opinion. Here's Holly Doan. She says Karen Hogan says that she's baffled by serial irregularities in federal contracting. During our audits, we keep trying to figure out why we're seeing the behavior that we're seeing. And it's clear a little bit further down here. Conservative nonconformist says, I just read that, but Conservative MP Stephanie Kuzi said taxpayers were owed an explanation. Why, based upon your intense evaluation, is the government incapable of following and enforcing the rules? It's a question we ask ourselves, replied the Auditor Hogan. Auditors in a June 10th report said the federal manager's involvement in irregularities may have breached an act of Parliament, the Financial Administration Act. Conservative MP Gerald Deltel expressed impatience with the testimony. We're not talking about rocket science, he said. We're talking about basic healthy management of public funds. Canadian families know how to manage a budget. Some Canadian families know how to manage a budget. I don't know that all Canadian families know how to manage a budget. But the Liberal government doesn't. The government has not known how to manage a budget in years. Look at the spending versus the income and look at the debt we're under. Government is not responsible and hasn't been for a while. Anyway, he says there's no justification. The fact that the government has historically not been responsible is no justification. We should demand a government that is fiscally responsible. But inevitably, we get governments in there and they sell us snake oil, and then we end up in a situation like we're in now, which is to say, totally screwed. So Holly Doan continues. She says MPs protest cabinet bill that would prohibit cash deposits at the bank of $10,000 or more. A strawberry you pick will collect over $10,000 cash easily in a day. Cash is still legal tender. When I worked at Taco Bell in the 90s, I was surprised at how much we'd make in an hour, right? $5,000 hours were busy hours, right? $7,000 hours were killer hours. And we got them lunchtime rush, dinner rush, and drive-through rush, which is after midnight to about 1:30-ish, right? Like you'd get a $7,000 hour at that time on a Friday or Saturday night when it was open that late. Or sometimes the closing rush at 4 o'clock would suck. You get like 10 cars and you'd be like, what? Why? What are you doing up? Why are you driving through? What is going on? But regardless, I digress. A $10,000 day? A $10,000 day? Yeah, man, you could do that in a business. Sure. And if you say, sorry, cash only, but I got these lovely strawberries here, people are going to pay you. And they're going to pay you in 20s and they're going to pay you in 40s, or not $40 bills, but they're going to, $20, $40, right? And that's going to stack up pretty quick. And big families might pay in hundreds, who knows? And yeah, $10,000 in a day, absolutely not money laundering. It would just be, we've got great strawberries, right? May not last 10 days in a row, but who knows? Depends on the weather, I guess. Dan McTeague is responding to Sheldon, and Sheldon says, watch for car dealerships to close their showrooms as they're forced to deal with the inventory they can't sell and costs they can't cover. Their service portion of those dealerships will thrive as people keep their ICE vehicles longer. Then keep an eye out on cross-border sales as Canadians buy ICE vehicles in the United States and import them. Yeah, ding, ding, ding. That's exactly. I won't be forced to buy an electric vehicle. They're crap. They don't work on multiple scales, and we've talked about that a lot. Dan McTeague responds and says, guaranteed environmental fanaticism has far-reaching consequences. Richard says that's just the beginning. Watch automakers pull completely out of the Canadian market rather than produce vehicles they lose money on. Instead, concentrate on the much larger U.S. market that has no EV mandate. Yeah, we are going to turn ourselves into a modern day northern cold Cuba. And it's not great. That's not good. Like, that is a very bad outcome due to bad policy. And our government continually engages in this. And I think that it's interesting, the idea of car dealerships closing their showrooms because they can't sell product that they're forced to stock and make available that nobody wants, right? And the gradual longer term effects are that the automakers themselves leave the country because it's not viable, because what their bad policy is calling for isn't what we want. And so isn't that interesting? I hope it doesn't get that bad, but it's certainly plausible. I can see a pathway, and man, that's not good. Here's Juno News, just a quick little report on this. Quebec will now house transgender inmates in the provincial jails according to their anatomical sex. Biological sex? Why not say biological sex? Under a new directive that the province says is meant to improve safety and fairness in detention facilities. Yeah, well, that's the least of it. Men shouldn't be in female facilities because men are men and not women. So it's that simple, like, honestly. Here's Blacklock's reporter, and they're reporting on Mark Carney and his wheelbarrow full of conflicts. He will not be saved by indignation or blind trust. So, staff try to manage all the conflicts of interest for Prime Minister and Miss Carney, discloses the Privy Council. We're working very closely with the PMO to manage all the conflicts he has. So a wheelbarrow full of them. And I think it's interesting because she works for Eurasia Group. Evan Solomon works for Eurasia Group. Gerald Butts works for Eurasia Group, right? And Carney's got conflict of interest because he's a former central banker in Canada, central banker in the United Kingdom, has a brother who's runs the British household. I think it's William's household, but regardless, he is well integrated and has a lot of conflicts of interest, not to mention Brookfield, which has heat pump businesses and EV businesses and all sorts of other stuff. So it doesn't seem like they're managing this whole wheelbarrow of conflicts very well, but that's what they say they're doing. Here is a little bit of an exchange in the House of Commons, and Dan McTeague says, Michael Barrett skewered at Carney. Can't imagine the elbows up fools are too pleased. Again, I don't like the victim blaming. I think the Canadian elections are rigged, and blaming a subsect of Canada for the election result, we all got stuck with a Liberal government, and I think it was a rigged result, and I think that we shouldn't blame each other. We should stand up and say, no, you can't do this to us. It's a different tactic, but I just want to make very clear, I'm not on board with victim blaming. I'm not blaming any subgroup or any group at all for installing the Liberals other than the globalists who installed them. It wasn't the boomers, and it wasn't Zoomers, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't you. This is an attack on us, the country of Canada, and indeed the West, and it wasn't the boomers' fault. If we are united, we're strong. But if we're divided, we're very weak. And right now, we're very weak. And they want us that way. Okay, so hence, I mean, I don't know if Dan's just playing into it. It's easy to play into, right? And I almost didn't even mention it, but I think it is important to mention. I think people fall into echoing these terms and stuff because it's easy, because it's a short form, because people understand what you're talking about then, right? I'm dissatisfied with this. Hope you're happy, people who voted for this. But I don't think anybody really voted for this. I really don't. Here's CBC Watcher. Michael Barrett flusters Carney on his conflict of interests, and Carney stands up and calls the speaker Mr. Prime Minister. So we'll watch, and then we'll move on. Here we go.
Has an entire department of bureaucrats trying to manage his conflicts of interest, but they can't even tell us if the Prime Minister has set up a conflict of interest screen. And so that means that the former chairman of a multi-billion-dollar investment firm is sitting at the cabinet table and could be taking decisions that personally improve his financial standing. He's been Prime Minister for 100 days, but he's still jumping through these ethical loopholes. So why won't the Prime Minister stop hiding the truth from Canadians and come clean? What are your conflicts of interest?
I would just remind the member to direct his question through the chair. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Unlike member opposite, I'm proud of having experience in the private sector. I'm proud of having experience helping to build this country. I'm proud of having filed all my requirements in advance before required, including a screen for the conflict of interest. I'll wait on these.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, unlike the Right Honourable Prime Minister, I'm proud to have served our country in the Canadian Armed Forces in uniform. Seems to do whatever he thinks he can get away with. He voted for the Liberals' ban on gas-powered cars, while Brookfield is heavily invested in the EV supply chain. We know that he used offshore tax havens in the Caribbean to avoid paying Canadian taxes. His own department won't even say if he set up conflicts of interest screens. So instead of maligning people who serve the country in uniform, why doesn't he stand up and come clean about his conflicts of interest?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, sorry. Battlefield promotion there.
Is this a joke to this guy? Honestly, it's ridiculous. It seems ridiculous to me. Okay. Here is Juno News, and it seems no election is on the horizon. All of these theatrics, all of this back and forth, all this, I'm proud of my service and rah, 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 all this stuff. It's just a show. We're not really going to get any kind of resolution to anything because the Conservative Party are supporting this Liberal government. The throne speech passed on division. They tacitly support it. They didn't vote against it. They let it go. And so I don't see a plan to go to any kind of election soon. And here's the MP stepping down to allow Pierre Poilievre to run in the by-election to get into the House of Commons. So we've got another month of this at least. Like, the government is not falling anytime soon. There's going to be no vote that says no confidence anytime soon. All of these signal to me, right? Hope I'm wrong about that, but it seems like pretty set in stone. Juno News is reporting Conservative MP Damien Kay has officially resigned his seat in the House of Commons to allow Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre to run in the riding. So there you go. And by-election will be called soon, I guess. The food professor, and I think probably Pierre Poilievre will win. But what do you think the Conservatives do if he doesn't win? If he doesn't win, he can't remain leader. And if he doesn't win, Jason Kenney becomes leader of the Conservative Party. Because they're not going to let Michael Barrett do it. It's got to be something. They might let Andrew Scheer take it on again, but I'm sure they're going to parachute somebody in. And Jason Kenney has been making all the right noises. He sounds very liberal, right? Very liberal indeed. And the globalists love it. They want him in there ASAP. Get this Pierre guy out of there. He's way too much of a pain in the ass. And Jason Kenney will make a good show of it. good show of it, and he'll almost say, no, I couldn't possibly. And then he'll embrace it. And then maybe he even become the next prime minister because Carney's like, oh, forget this, I'm out. They'll move Carney. They'll move him because he's too important a piece. And this is a limiting thing for his talent or whatever, I'm sure. Because the prime minister is limited by the country, right? So I guess the central banker is limited by the country, but he could go to different countries, right? He's been central banker in two. I digress. Food professor is talking about this. The biggest victims of Bill C-202, which protects supply management from trade concessions, aren't consumers, it's dairy farmers. Parliament keeps telling them everything's fine and dandy, but it's not. No, of course not. Real Agriculture says the swift passage of Bill C-202 through Parliament has polarized reaction from Canadian farm groups. So yeah, some people like it, I guess, but a lot of people don't. And so we'll see how all of this works out. But saying that you're going to get rid of interprovincial trade barriers and then moving to shore up interprovincial trade barriers through legislation that protects them in law in trade negotiations, well, that's sending mixed signals at best, right? Like, here's the MPs, the Conservative MPs, upset that the Liberals keep shutting down all of the committees and things done to study everything. And my argument, again, is the same. The throne speech passed on division. You didn't do anything to stop these people. Why do you think complaining about it now is going to do anything about it? You could have maybe had a chance to save your credibility and vote no against the throne speech and force the Liberals to get the votes to have confidence, right? But you didn't. And so now we're sitting here and they're in charge. Apparently they've got a majority on this committee as well, who all want to go on summer vacation, and the Conservatives are just so upset. And you did it to yourself, you guys, right? Like, there's absolutely no one to blame. Look in the mirror. This is what you've done to yourself. And ineffective doesn't even begin to describe it. Batting for the Liberals, I think, does. So here they are pretending to be upset about going on summer vacation. Garnet Genius says, shocking, Liberals block summer study of student unemployment, then abruptly end the committee meeting. Conservatives want to work together to address student unemployment. Liberals pretend to care and then pulled their support at the last minute. So,
hi everyone, we just wrapped up the first committee of HUMA, and really a surprising turn of events. We're
shocked.
in the middle of a major student unemployment crisis. 1 in 5 students are unemployed, and in good faith, we put forward a motion to do a summer study of the summer student unemployment crisis. We believe that parliamentarians should be willing to get to work over the summer so that students can get to work as well. Now, the Liberals initially said they were willing to do the study, but they wanted to change the date. We wanted the hearings to be completed by the end of July. They said the end of September. We tried to propose some modifications to that. In the end, they got what they wanted completely on date. The committee agreed to extend the date to the end of September. And then at the end of the meeting, they voted against doing the study at all, and they voted to adjourn the meeting right away. I asked, can we come to some consensus? Can we figure out how to do this in a way that you would agree? And they voted to adjourn and ran for the hills. Really shocking. Parliament didn't sit until May 26th of this year. It's going to adjourn at the end of this week. So we said, at least let's get committees back to work so that we can study the student unemployment crisis. Liberals opposed any study of the student unemployment crisis in order to protect their summer. Then they voted to adjourn the meeting right away. Just unbelievable behavior by the Liberals at this first committee meeting.
There you go. So there's that happening, and it's happening not just in that committee and another one too. Shannon says, Liberals scrambled to adjourn Natural Resources Committee so they can go on summer vacation. When I tried to move a motion that called on Liberals to repeal their anti-energy bill C-69, C-48, the federal industrial carbon tax, and the oil and gas cap, that's the only one of its kind in the world that threatened Canadian energy security, self-reliance, unity, and sovereignty. They adjourned everything. So here's this, and here we go.
Well, Chair, I guess I'd contest that, because since we missed an important part of the meeting that you said we were going to do before a motion to adjournment was made, obviously we're moving backwards in the agenda. That wouldn't count. I've asked to speak. In the course of my comments, I, of course, would like to move a motion that wasn't on notice, but since we haven't met before, this is, of course, my first opportunity. And it is that given that Trudeau-era anti-energy laws, including Bill C-69...
Mr. Danko. Mr. Gay. Monsieur.
And this is the vote. So they vote to adjourn the meeting and ran out. So again, I wonder, why do the Liberals have a majority? They have a minority government. Do the Liberals get majority on the committees? I don't understand. CTV is reporting, quote, "We cannot waste any time. Anita and Ann promises, quote, action and reform in foreign affairs." Oh, well, I mean, when you're taking over for Mel Joly, action and reform seem, again, like a small thing that you have to do, because I would imagine the entire department's in complete disarray because Mel Joly was more playing dress up than doing her job, unfortunately. So again, I don't trust Anita and Ann. The kickbacks to her husband are concerning and don't seem to be drawing any kind of look or second look from anybody. Everybody's, very excited. She's done this and that and all sorts of other things. And I can't help but question why anybody thinks that the exact same team would deliver a different result. This is the same team with the same people plugged into different outlets, and it's going to be just the same, right? Just because it's not Chrystia Freeland, or just because it's not Dominic LeBlanc, or whoever was the last person in foreign affairs, Mel Joly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They've done a terrible job on every file. Why would we expect anything different? And yet now they're saying, we're going to do lots of action. And just right after our summer break, we're going to go on summer break, and then action. Right then, after the summer break, action. Right? Like bullshit. What absolute nonsense. And so we're supposed to believe this? I'm not convinced. How did she get reelected? National Post is reporting Liberals show no signs of limiting MAID despite extremely concerned UN report. So the United Kingdom today just voted MAID in, and Canada's going full throttle forward with the MAID, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it doesn't help our citizens. It helps the straining healthcare system, but it incentivizes the healthcare system to offer this quick fix of, let's kill you instead. That'll end your suffering good and quick. And then we don't have to, you're a footnote in costs as opposed to years long of, medical care and appointments and medications and all sorts of other stuff, like modifications to your home, modifications to your car, modifications to everything. Super cheap compared to all that, to just, quick MAID injection, right? So the doctors and nurses are incentivized to offer that. And indeed, they do offer that. We've seen lots and lots of evidence of that. And so that's scary that Canada's continuing to lean into this. Here is Dallas Brody from BC. She's QBing a new BC party that's talking sense, it seems. So fingers crossed. We'll see how it turns out. And she's talking, I showed this yesterday, John Carpay's video about land acknowledgements and how they really don't help anybody, and it's a waste of everybody's time, and it's compelled speech. And he talks about what happened to Catherine Kronos, who, as a parent, who said, don't speak on my behalf with this land acknowledgement. The land isn't stolen. The school board bought it. You don't intend to give it back to anybody, so please shut up. She said it way nicer than that, but that's the Cole's notes. But I thought it was very interesting. And here's Dallas Brody's take. She says, the next time I hear an NDP or a BC Conservative MLA reciting a land acknowledgement, I'll be following up to ensure that they've also transferred the title of their home to a local Indigenous band. I hear Christine Boyle's place is nice. So these people are calling the land acknowledgers out for their hypocrisy. They have no intention of handing their house over to an Indigenous person who claims ownership of their land. And indeed, they shouldn't, by extension, hand over public lands on behalf of whoever they're talking about to First Nations, because they don't own that land. It's not their land to give in the first place. You don't own the school. Be quiet. You don't own the library. Shut up, Karen. So, right, like this has gone on long enough, and it's time to shut it down. Absolutely shut it down. Here is, I can't remember why. I think this was supposed to be this is Jessica. This is the Mark Carney's rebuke of America's war on woke exposes this about Canada's new prime minister. So this is talking about the language he uses, the way he uses the word we and us, and what that's doing to you psychologically to kind of soften you up for what he's saying next. He's talking unity, but only to get you on board, an us and them kind of dichotomy us versus the United States, us versus Donald Trump, us Canada versus our enemies, you know? And so it's interesting, 23 minutes. So I was kind of close. Very interesting if you want to take a look. I thought it was worthwhile. So that's certainly, it's certainly worthwhile. Okay, we'll do a couple of these censorship things. We'll do Belgium, and then I got to kill the stream. But the censorship stuff that's coming is just scary. Michael Geist is talking about C4, and Andrew Lawton is introducing or seconding Michelle Rempel's censorship bills. So we have to talk about that. We'll get to that later in the paid for show. But for right now, let's talk about Belgium really quick. So Dries van L, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get his name terribly wrong, is guilty, 12 months in jail. Madness. So it's absolutely madness. He got a 12-month sentence, and it's a suspended sentence, but still, he goes further into what that does. And the golden one says, this is insane. A year in prison for having been part of a group chat where someone posted a meme. Prediction, this is the beginning of the end of Belgium as a state. Flanders will rejoin the Netherlands, and the other one, Wallowina, I'm getting that wrong, I'm sorry, will join France. Brussels will continue as a city-state and the capital of the EU. So yeah, pretty crazy stuff, these crazy people. And so Dries says, I just received the written verdict. It's very long, so it will take time to analyze everything, but the 12-month prison sentence appears to be a suspended sentence. The irony is that I've been fighting against mass migration for well over a decade now, and it's gotten me a prison sentence. But this prison sentence is suspended most likely because the prisons in Belgium are full of illegal migrants. The regime's strategy is probably also to weaken public outrage by giving me a suspended sentence. Most people don't realize that the end result of such a sentence is the same. One politically incorrect tweet can now put me in jail. One meme sent by someone else is in a chat group I am in can turn the suspended sentence into an effective one. The suspended sentence is the gravest form of censorship they could pursue and an effective way to kill activism. The consequences of this verdict are insane. They're doing this to me to send you a message. It's the same with Tommy Robinson. They did to Tommy Robinson what they did to send you a message about if you should notice those grooming gangs or not. And the message was you should not, and Tommy's bad. And people went along with it for more than a decade. Okay. And he went to jail and he went to solitary confinement and they tried to kill him. So I don't know that Tommy's, a paragon of virtue or perfect guy or anything like that, but the state was weaponized against that guy. And in a completely unwarranted way. Like, he did not deserve that. I don't care what anybody says. Like, he didn't deserve that. You could be a terrible person and not deserve that. Anyway, I digress. Back to this. It's now possible in Europe to be convicted for memes posted by someone else in a group chat. People will now not only self-censor en masse, they will also distance themselves from each other out of fear of being convicted for what others say or joke about. Personally, this verdict means I will have an even harder time to do business, to get a loan, to travel abroad, and to do basically anything a young father, entrepreneur, and activist would have to do. It's a dark day for freedom of speech and for Europe. It's a very dark day for me and my family and my fellow activists. And 7 years of terror will now turn into many more years of terror. But I will not back down, never. Being convicted by a regime that wants to destroy its own people is a medal of honor, and I will wear it with pride. If you want to support me, share this message, raise awareness of this injustice. These are just my first thoughts. I will give a full reaction soon. So there you go. And very interesting and very, very concerning. And they're going after the internet. Absolutely going after the internet. Here's the researcher and highlighting this woman is the UN. This is Irene Khan, and she's a UN special rapporteur on freedom of expression and opinion. Where have you heard that before, right? And the researcher quotes, it's a 6-minute video, so his quotes are, hate and lies threaten democracy and free speech. As long as you call something a human rights violation, you are free to censor speech under the guise of disinformation. Listening to this tyrant is a violation of my human rights. Scary stuff. And the researcher continues, just say anything you want to control is a human right. And yeah, that's how they're getting into this. The researcher's sharing Channel 4. I for T. And this is a UNESCO video talking about internet is for trust. And, well, here, I'll just play it. It's a minute long.
A network of networks. www. Online. The internet. Physical touch made digital. We communicate, create, and transform. The democratization of knowledge, the devolution of power and education, the dissemination of information, we're all living this moment, the internet. And yet, Not everything is a bed of roses. Turn over this gleaming rock and you'll see there are insects thriving in the dark. The internet, a truly incredible human creation.
The fact that this is spoken word is just galling. Anyway, he's doing this poem to make you believe that it's really important that
I'm honored to present
that they censored the internet for your safety, comrade. So, but I'm done with the poem, so I just can't deal with that anymore. So we'll kill the stream. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll catch you tomorrow. And for everybody else, we will carry on with the censorship stuff because it's crazy. Here's AOC, and she says we're going to have to figure out how to rein in this media. This was maybe a little bit better than the poetry thing, but here's AOC and her crazy eyes.
I do think that several members of Congress in some of my discussions have brought up media literacy because that is a part of what happened here. And we're going to have to figure out how we rein in our media environment so that you can't just spew disinformation and misinformation. It's one thing to have differing opinions, but it's another thing entirely to just say things that are false. And so that's something that we're
safe and effective. Like borders don't matter, right? What's misinformation and disinformation there, AOC? All of the stuff that the Democrats say is misinformation as well. It depends on your frame. So you want to silence anybody who you don't agree with? It doesn't work like that. Not a Number says Australia has just banned under 16s from social media. This has nothing to do with social media, but it has everything to do with digital ID. They'll just kill social media. Like, okay, I'm just not going to go on social media anymore. I'm just going to use the regular internet. And then they'll meter the internet connection, right? It won't be at the social media level. It'll be at the internet level because people will just stop using that. But Halton Region is sharing the mayor